pressure pots, if you can look down there, I have two of them and two pressure pots, and I was a sucker because I wanted safety first. So I spent like $325 for this little one that's 2.5 gallons, and I spent a couple $100 for a larger one. Well, the 2.5 gallon, it has PSI up to 80 pounds per square inch. It's awesome and great. Yeah, there's a leak somewhere that I can't find. And so whenever I put it in there, I have to keep on coming back and putting more air in it to keep it under pressure for the 3 to 4 hours. So I'm not really particularly thrilled about it. But I went to, if you're getting started, I went to Woodcraft and got one of the very first one. This out of the box was ready. Didn't really have to do anything. And I've been happy with it. Now, pressure pots, important. Read the manufacturer suggested pressures because you don't want this thing blowing up and causing yourself harm or bodily harm to others and doing things. You want to do the right thing and read the instructions, follow them. And whenever we're doing stuff in pressure, we really only need like 40 pounds per square inch of pressure in order to do our job. So you don't need a ton of pressure. Now granted, I usually put this close to 60 pounds whenever I put it in, and I leave it set and I put my timer on. So pressure pots, yeah, they're very ideal, they're very useful. Can I get around not having a pressure pot? Certainly. You can go back to the very first thing, the epoxy, the two-part that has a working time. But what you're going to have to do is whenever you put it in the mold, you're going to have to get yourself a little lighter or a little torch and pop your bubbles. Blow it off on the top and pop them up. And it works really well, and it comes out nicely without a pressure pot. So you can get away with it. And these are the things you're going to use for river tables or bigger applications that will not ever fit in a pressure pot. So these are applications that you can use it. So you can get around it. I have some other applications of resin. This is an epoxy resin it's an art one. Never used it, I bought it. It's supposed to be really nice and clear and you don't need a pressure pot. Haven't used it yet, but I'm reading the instruction. It says 3 to 5 minutes of mixing.
Oh.
So I've got to do it. And I think this one here is, if you mix it really rapidly, just like any of you have in your workshop used polyurethane out of the tube, and don't shake it up or else all these little fine bubbles will be in it. Well, it's the same concept. Don't shake the dang things up or stir rapid like with an egg beater, or else you're going to have a ton of bubbles and they're probably not going to come out unless you have a pressure pot. So this is another option. Then there's a final option, and it's really cool, and I started doing this. This is UV resin. UV resin is pretty cool because it's liquid form. You put it in your spot, you space it out, then you turn on your flashlight. You flashlight the heck out of it, and probably in about a minute it's hard. And whenever you're done with it, if you're really not happy that it's really hard and you're a control freak, then take it outside and set it in the sunlight, and it will be definitely hard. So UV resin is another option. Rings that we make for ring making. They have that as well as other applications. So UV resin is just another option for there. So when we look at these things, that's really the essence of when we talk about it. So let's talk about some of the things that I've made just to give you some examples. So if you're interested in doing it, this is a wood turning group, but I like to call it, I feel it's more of a turning opportunity for me because I like to turn things. So things that we have, we can combine resin with all kinds of things. This is an example here of if you can see it, it is resin with a pine cone. And I decided to make a Christmas ornament with white tinted with a pine cone. So it gave us an opportunity to use those things. Pine cones really have neat things. I have just learned there's some guys out there that do some really great things with resin if you want examples. One of those great things with resin is, what is his name? His name is Zach. Zach Higgins. Zach Higgins in NZ Wood Turning. He has his own site, but he does two or three YouTube videos a week. He does a really good job at that. So if you want to look at someone that's doing acrylic and giving examples. If you're on, okay, so this is wood turning. I look at going to the store and I look at functions and look and find things that I can get cheap. Go to the dollar store and find this little plastic ornament. Added it with some wood, SpongeBob. Now I'll tell you, safe operating of a lathe is very important because that's in the important part too, is whenever you mix resin, it needs to adhere to things. It has to have a positive adherence. So sometimes there's a tendency for it not to adhere to the product. Like for example, I got these little beads and thought I was going to make this nifty little handle for a bottle opener. And I got these things at Hobby Lobby and poured them with clear resin, and I turned it on the lathe and started spinning, and I got little stars flying at me across the room. Because they're smooth, there wasn't anything for that resin to adhere to. So sometimes you have to be careful on what you're adhering to. Sometimes whenever you're doing things like wood, you want it to have a surface to adhere to. And that example of SpongeBob attacked me and cut me three times across my hand, because when I was turning the end of it, it busted off with the resin, come across the room, cut my hand, and went across the room. Now granted, it looks really nice now, but I was able to salvage it, but some of the things just doesn't work with resin adhering to. But you can also go out and holiday times, bottle stoppers are our big things, what we're doing, whatever store you can get into and get your favorite things. I look at things that are cheap, like Santa Claus or snowmen. I look at this way as a wood turner and the person that whether I'm giving it as a gift or wanting to sell it, I'm trying to minimize my costs. So to make these, you go over to Hobby Lobby, they have them, and you can buy a set of them, and you're maybe spending 50 cents for the snowman and the Santa Claus, and then bottle stopper in itself, maybe $5 or $6, and then you have $3 to $4 worth of acrylics. So at the end of the day, you're out maybe $10 in total making these things, and you make them clear. So these are just examples that would tell you that you can do anything. Use your imagination. What do you want to put in your acrylic? Always the fun thing is for anybody that can see this, here's the trivia question. What is in it? What is made out of? Can you see it?
Barely.
Zoom in, closer, closer, closer.
It's the light. There you go. It's good.
All right. Does anybody have any idea what the heck this is? What's in it? Well, let's see if I can rotate it around a little bit, give you a better view. Here we go. I'll let Tim do it. All right, well, if you can't see it clearly enough, them are actually pasta noodles, the tricolor spirally noodles that I bought. They're dry. They're dry, and they have the ability to go into acrylic. So that was the nice thing is I look and think, what can I stick in acrylic? I just, anything you can imagine, you can do. I've done the crazy stuff. I've done lifesavers. Well, lifesavers are interesting to put in acrylic because they're just a neat thing that people will recognize. Horrible idea, because when you start turning at high speeds of rate, what happens when we're turning things? What happens to our material, our tools? Everything gets hot. As soon as you hit into a piece of candy, it is a gooey, nasty mess. So I made one, I salvaged it, and I was able to get through it. So now I have made my own lifesavers out of resin, so I can try it again. So because I don't want the gooey mess to happen. Now there's other things, and the reason why resin is nice are pen turners. Pen turners, the ability to go out and turn pens and customize as many pens as you want. Now, with pens like this, you're doing in-tube pens. So, or tube in pens. So basically, you get a mold that has little holes in the end. You get your favorite pen kit, and then you print out a label. Labels that really work, trial and error is, don't go out and buy the regular labels you normally use for your envelopes and everything. You want to go to onlinelabels.com and buy weatherproof ones. Weatherproof ones, they won't get nasty as in fade, because an example of failures, and I tried the different experiments. These are a couple pens that I've done in tubes, and I don't know if you can see that. These are failures because they're discolored. I used a regular label, wrapped it around there, did the hodgepodge and sealed it and everything else, and as soon as it went into acrylic, I got little spots over. So they're horrible. They're horrible, but it's a learning experience. So what I learned is buying weatherproof labels. So as soon as the ink prints off your printer, they're dry. You can take them out in the water and get them wet, and they work really nice. And so then you can go out there to make your life easier and go to places like P-Town Subby or other groups. P-Town Subby and other groups in order to get molds and get the things to do those. coming up with ideas. It's acrylic resin is nice, but you need to, if you're going to pair it with wood and you're going to do engraving or everything, it's important to know the color of wood and the color of resin. You got to match it out. It's trial and error. The nice thing about it, this piece of wood and this little bit of resin, the only thing it really costs me is time. And I can buy all kinds of the tubes. So they're a lot of fun. And other things absolutely don't work. They're just not, they don't adhere. So beyond that, let me say, anything else I can think of. If you think of anything that you want to put in resin to make a handle, a bottle stopper. Heck, I made an art piece with my wife where I took a piece of wood, put rocks in there, put little fish, and then put resin in there. And it was an art piece. And it goes a little bit beyond wood turning or turning, but there's so many things that you can do in turning. So that are the fundamentals that I wanted to cover and show you. There's in itself a couple bottles of this stuff. The big bottles are like 170 bucks. So I'm going to tell you, the big bottles aren't cheap. All right, but it goes a long way. It's about 2 gallons worth of it. So part A and part B. But if you want to just get started and have fun, this is the best way to get started. For 23 bucks at Hobby Lobby. I'm sorry, no coupons for this one. You know, normally I go to Hobby Lobby and I find my 40% off coupon, but unfortunately this one doesn't have it. So this is a great way to get started. Even if you don't have a pressure pot, you can go out there and start doing those things. And for us wood turners, how many times have you got a piece of wood that you're turning for a bowl, and all of a sudden you get a divot out of it, or you get a crack, and you're like, who wants this cracked bowl? Nobody wants it. You know, nobody wants this cracked bowl. So this is an opportunity where you can salvage a piece of wood by using a mold and going out and casting some resin inside it. So that are the essence, and you know, that's the nice thing about it. Is there any questions? And that's what I'll turn it back to you. I'll tell you what I know, and if I don't know it, I'll just tell you I don't know it. So I'm going to turn it back to you, everyone, for questions.
Okay. You were saying using resin on a cracked bowl. Now you're talking the stuff that you're getting in Hobby Lobby, and you're just going to, and you're getting simplistic, you're going to tape up the sides of the bowl with the crack and then just pour the resin down into the crack?
Yeah, you certainly can. You just got to make sure maybe there's something for it to adhere to. And whenever you talk about things like in a crack, you know, that resin in the pressure pot has a tendency to squeeze those things in, and when you manipulate it, you want to get it deep into the crack and try to manipulate it as much as you can. But you can put those into the cracks and do those things. A pressure pot's really nice because it will help put under pressure into those cracks. All right, but even if you don't have one of those, if it's just a pretty much straight up crack, you can see it the whole way through, it will fill it. And the thing I didn't tell you about it is, whenever you do resin casting, there are so many different colors you can pick. Yeah, and you can buy these things at Hobby Lobby, or you know, they sell it because we're not the only people that are using resin. People are making cups and making other things, and you can buy these little ones. Here's a kit, I think I spent with a coupon like 10 bucks buying about 20 of these little package of colors that you can use to mix with that. Or then you can go to the bigger ones and spend like 5 or 6 bucks, and you can get crazy. You know, you can get crazy buying stuff. So you can do it. Again, it's trial and error in some cases. Did that answer your question?
Oh, you definitely did. Like I say, I've got a couple pieces that are, you know, I rough turned them, got them sitting on the shelf, and I noticed now I've got some cracks in them. So I figure, what the heck, for a few bucks, if I, you know, spend 25 bucks and give it a shot, what have I lost? You know,
right.
In fireplace if I need to.
And the thing is, and why I would probably encourage you to use the Hobby Lobby, the epoxy portion of it, and what it's technically called is Amazing Clear Cast. Amazing Clear Cast, because it is a moisture a little bit more tolerant compared to the other stuff in the big bottles that is expensive. Any drop of water, it will just screw everything up. So I would use this and try it out.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Man, I'm either that good or that boring.
I don't know, he may have not turned the microphone on.
I certainly enjoyed it. Like hearing the gives me something to think about.
It's not a problem. Like I said, I like wood turning, but acrylic is just this whole new dimension. It goes out and allows me to do so many things that a piece of wood, unfortunately, they're nice grain patterns, they're nice colors. But how many purple pieces, well, okay, let's not use purple. How many blue pieces of wood do you find out there? Not very many. And then there's just so many, your creative juices get flowing.
Thanks for the question, Bill. Anybody else got a question? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Okay, well, we got 1 minute left, and before we log off, we'll just open up to any questions, and I'll turn it back over to Bob for any closing comments. Bob, closing comments?
Robert, we sure do appreciate you inviting us into your shop. It's really been educational. It was a fine presentation. I enjoyed it thoroughly and learned quite a few things. I hope you guys learned something as well. As I said before, we won't meet in December. The next meeting will be in January. And I know there was somebody that was trying to get in and did not make it, and
We never did see them.
I don't know, but we'll have to try to figure out what the problem is and get it corrected and make it where he can get in. We did record it, I think,
Yes.
and we ought to be able to make that available to him so that he can watch it at a later time. So that's all I've got, and we'll sign off and see you guys in January.
See you next year.
And we were wearing masks unless we were speaking.